Hi everybody, hope you're all really well. I just thought I'd run through exactly what we're going to do for the next couple of weeks as we go into summer term one. I know some of you are a bit stressed that you needed to go through some of the poems, so the first thing that we're going to do in this week, we're going to go through the 4 poems that you did at the end of last term. That looks like My Last Duchess, Prelude, Storm on the Island and Ozymandias. So we're going to do those this week, clear those with some videos and then some tasks for you to do. As we go into the next week, then we're going to look at the identity poems. So we're going to spend some time looking at London, the Emigre, checking out history and tissue. So you are going to need your anthologies, so hopefully you've got those at home. If not, you'll be able to find them on the internet, so don't worry if you haven't got your anthology. Just download a copy off the internet and then you can stick it into your anthologies when we do get back to school, so there's no need to worry about that. Following us going through all these poems, we're going to do some English language work. We're going to start looking through some of the reading sections, so I will link the papers on to show my homework. I'll take you through how to do the questions just as we would in the classroom on here, and then you can complete the activities at home. Don't worry if you feel like you've got too much to do. You need to be doing about half an hour to 45 minutes of work, I would say probably a day when you've got a lesson scheduled. Don't do loads more than that. If you think I can't get through this whole poem in my 45-minute slot, you can just do it the next time you have English, so don't panic. What I will be asking is that you submit 1 piece of written work a week, and I will make that really clear on Show My Homework. So these videos work in conjunction with the work that goes on to Show My Homework, so you will have some resource booklets and some work set that you will need to do in tandem with whatever we do on here. So just to make it really clear, we will start our first session, we will go through Storm on the Island, so you need to make sure that you've got your anthologies ready and you're ready to go with that poem. Okay, so as promised, we are going to spend a little bit of time looking at Storm on the Island by Seamus Heaney. Now I know you've already gone through this, so your anthologies may already be covered in notes. I'm just going to take you through the highlights and the things that I think that you really need to be aware of. You don't need to have a massive focus on the Irish Troubles. They are important contextually, and I'm going to link some critical reading for you over on to Show My Homework, but that's not what I'm going to base a lot of my discussion about on here. Instead, I'm just going to talk you through the fact that this is a poem that deals heavily with conflict. It deals with tensions between 2 parts. Specifically in here, it deals with the tension between man and nature, which is shown throughout with the oxymorons. There's quite a lot of juxtaposition in here to show that ongoing battle that the islanders faced against nature, whom they thought was company, and it talks about that in there. So let's just get started. To begin with, you need to be very aware of the structure of this poem. It starts and it talks about images of security. If you think very carefully here, we've got this, we are prepared. They feel ready. They're prepared for it. But the only reason that they would be prepared for something is if they were aware of what was coming. So they know what is coming. I think this first person plural pronoun here, that's a first person plural pronoun, is really important. It shows that the islanders are a group. They are together. We are prepared. We're all in it as in one sort of group. We build our houses squat, but you can't not acknowledge the caesura here. This colon, we are prepared, pause. It's almost like the islanders have to take a really deep breath because they know what's coming. Before they can go on, before they can fight their battle, they almost have to mentally prepare themselves as well as physically prepare the islands and their homes for what they know is inevitably coming. We build our houses squat, sink walls in rock and roof them with good slates. This wizened earth has never troubled us with hay, so, as you see, there are no stacks or stooks that can be lost. I mean the idea of a wizened earth, the idea that it's barren, that there's nothing there, it's not yielded a crop. So, in a way, the islanders think that they're quite fortunate because they haven't got materials that they can lose. They haven't got hay. They haven't got, what else they talk about? Sticks that can be lost. There's nothing there. So they feel like they can't have that taken away from them. But what they can be given by the storm is fear. And that's an ongoing sort of theme. Here, you notice that they feel quite confident. They feel quite secure. So security. confidence. So you're just going to have a little awareness of the fact that the tone shifts. So the structure, there is a shift in the tone. So the tone does shift as the poem develops. We keep coming through. So nor are there trees which might prove company when it blows full blast. You know what I mean. Now this feels very conversational, doesn't it? You know what I mean. As if the speaker is talking specifically to somebody. Is he talking to somebody who he relays the story to, or somebody who he thinks is going to offer him support? But it feels very intimate, very conversational. Almost like this is something that they go through and they feel like they have to tell somebody about. Leaves and branches can raise a tragic chorus in a gale. Now, a lot of people might not think that this is very important to it. However, I think it is. A tragic chorus, most commonly found in Greek tragedy. The tragic chorus, it's not like a chorus in a song, necessarily, where we have a repeated little idea. A chorus was a group of speakers, and choral speaking is when a group of people or a group of narrators all talk together and they narrate the story. The tragic chorus is there in a Greek tragedy to tell us exactly what's happening at each point. Now, you might not be aware of this, but Greek tragedies, they often end in quite a lot of death. And really awful consequences. So I wonder if Heaney just gives a little bit of a nod to this here, like these islanders are talking about what's happening, just like the chorus would do in a Greek tragedy. The chorus knows what's coming, and maybe Heaney knows that there will be deaths along the way. Now, if you want to do something that's quite clever and you want to link it to the context, be aware that this poem is written in 1966, so the Troubles were ongoing for a very long time, but maybe Heaney was aware that the Troubles would result in a lot of death. Lots of the Troubles sort of were coming afterwards, and Stormont and all of the buildings where most of it sort of centred around, they come a little bit later than this poem, so some people might say that, you know, they're not directly linked, but it's almost as if it foreshadows the fact that there will be quite a lot of deaths, either in this physical storm that we think that Heaney is talking about, or actually in the metaphorical storm of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. So you have to be aware that you can read this poem on two levels, and you guys need to be reading it on two levels. So if you're going to talk about a tragic chorus, then you need to be talking about the context and try and weave that in to your analysis a little bit. So, can raise a tragic chorus in a gale so that you can listen to the thing you fear, forgetting that it pummels your house too. All of a sudden, you can listen to the thing you fear. They are frightened of this storm. They are frightened what's coming ahead. Maybe that's because the storm is unknown. People are often more frightened of the unknown. So the storm is unknown. But it paints a picture of a sort of enemy. The idea of being fearful of an enemy. You can listen to the thing you fear, forgetting that it pummels your house too. Violent imagery again here. Pummels your house. The idea of like little punches. Forgetting that it pummels your house too, but there are no trees, no natural shelter. Look at that repetition of no here, the emphasis on the negative. You can see here, if we're going to go back to the idea of this tone shifting with the structure, then it becomes a lot more negative here. We've got here tragic chorus, pummels your house, fear, no, no. All of these words here turn very, very negative. You might think that the sea is company, exploding comfortably. This has got to be one of your key quotations, I would say here, that the sea is exploding comfortably. If I was in class, I'd be saying to you, what technique is this? But I just have to obviously tell you, it's an oxymoron here. So you've got your oxymoron. The sea is company. And I think what we mean by this is the sea is such a huge natural entity. And for the most part, people will visit the sea, have a nice time at the sea. It's pleasant to look at, because people won't really go to the seaside or visit the sea when it is really rough. You might see it on the telly, you might see it on the news. But the sea all of a sudden goes from being company, a comfortable company, if you think about that, something where you can go and be at peace. But all of a sudden then it turns very quickly. It explodes comfortably. The sea is comfortable, exploding like this, showing that even the things that we think are safe, that we think are comforting images, can turn quickly. So we've got here, even comforting images can quickly turn negative and threatening. Okay. Down on the cliffs, but no. When it begins, the flung spray hits the very windows. Spits like a tame cat turns savage. And that's another one that you need there. Spits like a tame cat turns savage. There's lots in there. But again, we've got these juxtaposing ideas. We've got this idea of a tame cat, these familiar images that become incredibly frightening in the storm, turn savage. You've got here the juxtaposition between tame and savage. Let me just write it down there. Okay, so you've got this juxtaposition between the tame and the savage. And this is the whole sort of picture that Heaney is painting throughout the poem, is that things that are tame, things that are calm, things that are comfortable can change very, very quickly when put under pressure. When a storm comes, for example, or when there are riots, or when there is conflicts, political conflicts potentially, if you're looking for those AO3 marks. You've got tame and savage. Think about, he hasn't said wild. He hasn't said wild, because savage implies so much more, doesn't it? If we just said tame and wild, they're obvious opposites. You can have a wild cat and you can have a tame cat. But Heaney is very, very purposefully, I would say, pick savage. Savage here as an adjective. Yet, to be a savage, if you want to think about the noun savage, to be a savage with savages, is the idea that you don't follow any rules, that they are like lawless peoples. They don't live by the rules of established communities. So I just think Heaney's done something quite clever there. So you might want to talk about the polysemous nature of savage here, which I'll just jot in there for you. And you can, you should be expanding these notes. Look, I've barely done anything. But you can pause this video as you need to and make extra notes. But it's polysemous. In this case, it's an adjective, but you could think about it as a noun and think about what that could also suggest to you. We go back to the we, just like at the start. So we are prepared. We just sit tight while wind dives and strafes invisibly. Space is a salvo. We are bombarded by the huge empty air. Strange. It's a huge nothing that we fear. We've got quite a lot of sort of images of warfare there, I would say. They're also quite a lot of assonance there. We sit tight while wind dives. Those sibilant sounds. They kind of complement the sounds in lines 14 to 17. They imitate the hissing and the spitting of the sea and the cat. The wind dives. I can't even say it. While wind dives and strafes, spits like a tame cat. The flung spray hits. There's lots of that assonant sound. Lots of that vowel sound that comes through. We are bombarded by the empty air. Air is an odd image, isn't it? To be bombarded by something that is empty. Almost like the enemy is hidden. And I think that that's really what he's getting at. That sometimes you can't always see the enemy that you're fighting, but you're fighting something. So this idea of an invisible enemy. Because these islanders, they're not scared for no reason. If it was just air blowing against their window pane, they wouldn't be scared. It's all of the things combined that show that they have got an enemy in nature. Now, whether you take that enemy to be nature or whether you think about it on a more metaphorical level, that's your analysis. But I just think even if they can't see the enemy, they know that they're fighting something. When we get to the end and we've got this quite contemplative tone. Strange, comma. It is a huge nothing that we fear. We go back to this oxymoronic language. It's a huge nothing that we fear. Now, we've got the oxymorons, we've got the juxtaposition, we've got tame captain, savage exploding comfortably, huge nothing. There's no way, I mean, I'm not in his head, but I wouldn't think there's any way that Heaney thinks that he's going to put in all of these contrasting images just because he fancies it. I think he's done it to show the distinct tension between two enemies, in this case man and nature. So just be aware of that. There's no point in an analytical response saying, yes, Heaney uses quite a lot of juxtaposition, Heaney uses oxymorons. You need to say why he does it. So it's so much more productive to say Heaney employs the use of juxtaposition when he states, when he uses the simile, spits like a tame captain, savage. The use of contrasting images within this simile could suggest the tension that Heaney attempts to portray between man and nature. Now, obviously, I'm just doing that off the cuff. It's probably not as perfect as it would be if we were writing it, but that's the type of thing that you need to be saying. It's huge nothing that we fear. Almost like they can't believe that they were scared because they can't see anything there now. That we fear. And we've got that repetition of fear there. But huge nothing, you know, the idea that the storm is invisible. It's nothing solid. Now, if it's nothing, if it's empty air, it contrasts with the solidity of the houses here. So even when something's really solid and something's built on solid ground, it can still be threatened by something, which at first doesn't seem to be a huge enemy, but actually it is. So just be aware of that. Tracking on this structure, tracking on the tone, you need to be aware that you've got to talk about structure really to get a high grade. You're talking about security and confidence here, solidity, purposefulness. They've not had any problems, but they know that something's coming. We come through here and we get this violent imagery around here, this violent negative imagery. We then come down here and we've got all of this juxtaposition again showing the tension. So we've gone from security to negativity to violence to tension to then all of this imagery here, this sort of semantic field of war with the strafes, salvo, bombarded, to war, to nothing again. Almost this feeling of emptiness, this idea of helplessness. So you've got to be thinking very, very carefully. Now, I think this poem is an excellent one to use in the exam because you can talk about the fact that there are enemies, unseen enemies, unexpected enemies. You can also talk about the impact that a war, I know this is a war between nature, but you can also talk about the impacts that war has on people. So that human conflict that so often comes up as one of the themes in here. So that's just a really, really quick run through of Storm on the Island. Do make sure that you go through it, that you understand exactly what they mean. Make sure that you populate your own notes. And I will link some questions onto the Show My Homework website for you as well, along with some critical reading. Okay.